Yes, hello. Welcome to this program or this broadcast that is titled At the Border of Mysticism. I will give you a short introduction to the subject or what's led up to this broadcast. First I will get my things right on the screen. There it is. Yes, my name is Stefan Hellsten. I'm a psychologist working and living in Stockholm. Some years ago I wrote a paper on New Age spirituality and psychology, psychodynamic or psychoanalytic psychology, that is. And I will give you a short introduction to that study, what it led up to as well. But this spring I've done some broadcasts, some episodes presenting this study in Swedish. I think I've done it 9 or 10 times. And I think I've pretty much covered what I wanted to say and what I can say about that subject in Swedish. And somehow, I will get back to that later as well, but when I did this study, it was an interview study with 11 grown-ups with a firm alternative spiritual New Age worldview. There were some things that they told me that made a deeper impression on me. I was quite familiar with the worldview before, and many of the answers I got was very elaborated, or clear answers to how destiny is formed, that death is an illusion, that mankind, we all move towards emotional and intellectual fulfillment, like a stair upwards. So that was it was familiar to me, expected, but there were some answers, themes that made an impression on me. It was kind of overwhelming, so to speak. It was not quite new, but the what to say, the unison struggle that is with certain subjects among my interview persons. I met them one-on-one, so it was 11 long interviews. That made an impression on me. And in short, that can be, you can say that it's about God. It's about the divine area in life, like this this belief, or this picture of a greater order or system And in short, one of the things they struggled with, although I'm not sure they would say they struggle themselves, but to me it was obvious. It was, for example, is God personal or unpersonal? Is it a person or more like a function in the universe? More like a program, what to say? That was seemed to be hard for the persons I were talking to, hard for them to pinpoint or feel. If it was either way, the other way. Mostly they tried to. It was both. It was both personal and unpersonal. And the picture of God in whole was somewhat very different from the ordinary, the traditional picture of God. The New Age or alternative spiritual God was both good and evil. He, she, it was in charge of both the good stuff and the bad stuff. Both male and female, or neither. So, as a whole, this material about God was awaken a lot of thoughts of me, feelings as well, and now I'm still talking from a psychological point of view, and I will continue to talk from a psychological point of view, not out from a belief, not from a personal belief, and I'm not gonna try to force some beliefs on you. Maybe psychological beliefs then, but no metaphysical beliefs. So my interest is, as a psychologist, and psychologist from a psychodynamic, psychoanalytic area within psychology, but on the border to mysticism, as the title is for today. And I think I will keep that title because it's a good it's a good what to call it. It sums up. It will be able to contain whatever these broadcasts will lead me. But yes, back to what I said. Doing these episodes during the spring of 2020, I feel quite secure about talking about that subject. I know what I can say, and I know pretty much what I don't know anything about. So I feel quite secure about that subject. I have presented it, and coming to some sort of end of that presentation now, the questions that still lingers around me is the questions dealing with God, the divine, the place that this divine part of life, the role it plays in many people's lives, and maybe in different ways. I'm thinking of traditional Christianity. Maybe I suppose it's similar to if you are a believer in other of the big religions, traditional religions, but that in relation to this New Age God. And so that's what I will use now. I've learned this technique for broadcasting, and it costs nothing, and I think it's quite I like it. I like to put myself and staying in this area between spirituality and psychology. I myself have a long-term involvement in when I was younger. Most of all when I was younger, but these big questions still has a value for me. So it's, I like to give myself the opportunity to think about these things. And actually, why am I doing this in English? It's not my native tongue, as you notice. Maybe different reasons. It's a quite narrow perspective, and perhaps someone within the English speaking world will find this and get something out of it. But it's also, I think it's a challenge for myself. I like it, and it's in some way it's I think it can be helpful, because this subject sort of calls upon you to be more humble, not too cocky. It can be a good thing to have to taste the words and try to find a metaphor, to think a little more slowly, a little more slow. Yeah, so that's a little about that. I have not made an agenda to show you for today. Actually, when I sat down at my table earlier today, it's morning in Sweden, I hadn't decided if I would like to do this in English. I have some material in Swedish, but I haven't translated it to English. I will try to do later if I decide to move further and do more episodes on this subject. Yes, I can say something. Perhaps a week ago, I see myself as quite a novice to the area of the subject of mysticism. So what I did was I sat down, I googled mysticism, and I found one of the hits in Google was a man called Alan Watts. I believe was a British philosopher, introducer of Buddhism, Zen-like spirituality in our part of the world. I think he lived in US later. And I'm sure there's a big chance that anyone watching this is much more familiar with Alan Watts than I am. I clicked on the YouTube link. It was just sound, and I listened to about a quarter of a speech that Alan Watts gave in the maybe beginning of the 70s or late 60s, I don't know. He died in the beginning of the 70s, I believe. And he was talking about mysticism, that special quality of experience when a world, the surrounding world, you're somewhat distant to it, it's unfamiliar, maybe even hostile. It's you and the world, and the mystic experience is to find yourself being within the world and you are one, so to speak. And it was of high quality. I no doubt it was his way of talking about these things had authority. I have no doubt that his reputation is well deserved. And then I switched off this sound clip. I went back to Google. I googled his name to find out who he was. And someone had, it was some sort of forum for philosophical spiritual forum, and someone put out the question, how did Alan Watts die? And it's difficult. I shouldn't be putting this out like a truth, because I don't know if it's the truth, and it's not that important, but it would be terrible to describe Alan Watts in this way, introduce him in this way, if I'm wrong. But the answer was that Alan Watts' cause of death was in part alcoholism and what do you call it when you work too much, exhaustion. And afterwards I have been thinking about that. And I use this story, true or not true, as a departure point for some of the thoughts I will try to bring on here. And that is what is the is there a hazard? Is there a problem having a spirituality, having a spiritual interest without a God to relate to? And I'm still I'm saying this still out from a psychological perspective. And back to my study, the persons I were talking to, and their struggle to describe their type of God made a kind of sad impression on me. As I said, I wasn't totally surprised over these answers, but the amount of it, of the struggle, made me concerned or sad. And then back to Alan Watts. I've been thinking a lot about how much that there's so much of the modern alternative spirituality, spiritualities that are without a more traditional God, someone to relate to, someone to in a healthy way feel inferior to. This of course corresponds to the parent-child constellation, of course. And I wonder if even a great man like Alan Watts that he in some way his foundation in life was too brittle, because of a lack of a personal God relation. You have this Western Buddhism, mindfulness movement, the yoga meditation boom, Zen Buddhism. I'm not very familiar to these things, but to my knowledge, they all not they're not traditional in that respect, that they involves a godlike individual to be in relation to. But now again, no, I don't know that much about Alan Watts, as you hear. But as a departure for a thought around these things, I'd like to give you a short introduction to that study I made about alternative spirituality, New Age spirituality, and psychology. And maybe later I will try to present it in a more complete way in English as well. I've done it in Swedish, but in English. But I will give a short introduction to the result. And now, yeah. Oh, let's see. First, I will be up in the left corner now. Here's just a picture of I think it's an old occult painting. Or at least it looks old. And I think it pictures very well what my interviews persons were talking about, and New Age spirituality as I know it. Like we're all living in a sort of bubble where life seems to be working in a certain way. We live and we die, and destiny strikes in an unpredictable way. Sometimes you're able to understand why things happen to you or to others, and sometimes you're not. And this has an importance for my study. I will get to it later. And New Age, newer spirituality is like when you get into that world picture, or those answers, when you accept or those answers, it's like putting your head out of the bubble and you see a world order, a working mechanic, so to speak, of the universe, of the cosmos, of the whole existence. Like we're not death is an illusion. We live forever through reincarnation. Destiny is maybe you're not capable of understand why things happen to you or to others, but through the law of karma, you can be sure that the destiny is both fair and it's self-inflicted. Like the things you experience is stuff that you yourself have manifested earlier, and now it's coming back to you, either as a reward or just a pleasant payback for good things, or it's suffering and pain, psychological and somatic, economical, I don't know, because of what you have done before as well. So it's a working universe, and of course the subject of God is affected by this. What role does a God individual play in a cosmos for the individuals when there's a, so to speak, they live forever, they have lived forever in eternity, yes, both onward and backwards, and they creating their own destiny over and over again. What role can a god play in this? And one picture for me when I confronted by these god images is like God is more like a something like when you're going by a sail ship, like a sail ship race, and you just have to round something to get back. So God is more just like a thing you out in the universe. Is your karma waves just make a turn around and then go back to the person. So, just like a switch station, like an old telephone switch station. So those were the three core beliefs that for me sums up the New Age spirituality. The belief in reincarnation, the belief in karma, and the belief in that we all, one by one, individuals, is evolving through our own actions towards a total fulfillment, emotional and cognitive. Like we are becoming gods ourselves. And for me, like a scientist or a psychologist, I'm not supposed to have any beliefs in is this true or untrue? Is it realistic or unrealistic? What's the name for that? Is it ontological truth? I'm not supposed to have not belief, but I'm not supposed to say something is it's true or not true. Of course, that's part of the role as a psychologist or a scientist, if you like. But I just want to be sure to say this, that for me it's more than that. Still having my one foot or maybe feet in the psychological realm or area, so I feel humble about these questions and these worldviews. Maybe they are true. Maybe they give a better explanation than both traditional nature science and traditional religion. I don't know. But my interest in these things, and I will get back to it soon, is, as I already have like sketched, is what is, if anything to say about that, what is the psychological impact of a New Age spirituality on me as an individual. Even if it's true, maybe it's true, and it's even more interesting because I believe that the psychological question marks, so to speak, is still relevant, worth considering, and worth describing. Yeah, we move further. Here is the result. It's in Swedish, but I will use it as a help for myself, and I will translate it to you. My study was about the existential, what do you call it? You're a human person, you're living on this earth, in this world, so to speak, within the bubble. That's what we know, in the bubble. What is the existential facts or for our lives? And I used quotations from good psychoanalysts, and I tried to make a list of the existential facts, like we're alone, we are dependent on each other in many circles outside ourselves. We are dependent on each other. We are that sort of horizontal existential fact, and as well we are within different hierarchies. Parent-child is obvious, and then you have a teacher, student, and maybe God. God as a psychological like a psychological truth, or if it's even is it called ontological? Like when it's really true, it's metaphysical true that there is a God. Yeah. Either way, you are within a hierarchy where God is above us, and we are limited in different ways. We are limited in knowledge, we are limited in time, how much time we have to become what we like to become and such. And we are getting older, the body is deteriorating more or less, and like the final fact that this life will end. So those existential facts was in the background for me when I made these interviews. And these talks covered a lot of different areas in life, like responsibility, how we look upon the world, how we look upon the future, what love is, friendship. It's just it was half structured interviews, long interviews. So in sum it was maybe 20 hours of interview, interviews that I transcribed, and so. But the result was that my interview persons, and they all had a firm belief in New Age alternative spirituality. They have such a worldview. They those existential facts were not valid to them. They opposed to them, not directly, but by giving a picture of their worldview. You could see where there were no room for those existential facts, so to speak. And as a psychologist, or from a psychological, psychodynamic framework, that is sort of alarming. You are grown up, living your life, and neither of the existential facts you embrace or accept or are ready to, so to speak, put on your shoulders. You're not letting them to define your life and your place in this world, or like something like that. So that's the first thing. Yeah, it's worth a closer look. Can this type of spirituality be harmful to people? Because I build my study on earlier and ongoing studies within attachment theory and even experimental psychology, dealing with New Agers compared to Christians and atheists, I think it was. And this other research had come up with some results that pointed towards that the New Age spirituality could be possibly harmful. On a group level, the result for the New Age group was similar to the result that you otherwise find in a clinical population. Yes, I had something to build on, and my direction become to also look on these existential facts that has some meaning, some core importance within the psychodynamic, psychoanalytic field. And so you can say that my study pointed in a similar direction as the research in other fields, but that was interesting enough. or not. But to me it was obvious. Obvious is too strong, but it was I sort of grasped that within this group, that on a sort of verbal level, they all described how they stood above the existential facts, so to speak. The existential facts are illusion. Within this group, that on a verbal level said the same, like there were different ways of sort of embody or living with this New Age worldview, outlook upon on yourself and on the world. And I, a little speculative, hypothetical, I divided these differences into 3 sub-groups, and I will just make a short description of that. The first group, number 1, that if you're English speaking, you at least you can understand the numbers. Group number 1 was individuals that already before they encountered the New Age worldview in adult life or teenager life, I don't know. Already before they were somewhat disorientated in life, and I think that this research on attachment theory that is conducted largely actually at the Stockholm University by a man called Per Granqvist. I think that what I have found can be relevant to this group number 1. If you have had a rough, chaotic start in life, New Age spirituality, these core beliefs that I said earlier, can be familiar to you. The New Age spirituality may feel like home. These are things that is similar to what you're used to. Within attachment theory, they talk about, for example, role reversal, that this hierarchy between parent and child has not been sufficient, has not been good, that reversed roles within the family, and a lot of that stuff you find in New Age spirituality as well. Within attachment theory, they talk about privacy of thought, that you can have your feelings, your inner world is yours, and you can yourself decide who you let in and what you are obligated to share with others. And many people who have had a rough start in life, that's one of the things they don't have what would you call it, automatic, or they have a live. That's not their psychological foundation, so to speak. That your inner world is yours, and if you are somewhat disoriented in that area, you will find within New Age spirituality a lot of stuff that is similar to that. Yeah, group number 1. Group number 3 at the bottom is individuals who, on a verbal level, don't approve to these existential facts, but on a verbal level, but on an emotional level, they seem to have embodied, accepted them anyway. And I call them mature, psychological mature. Yeah. I'm sure there are better words, but I used psychological mature. And those are the people who seems to have the ability to, on a deeper core level in their psyche and emotional world, they are rooted in the existential facts that makes it this world and the relationships and stuff. You have you find your place, and you are able to relate, orientate yourself. Yeah. But they have this other level as well. They have a philosophical, warm philosophical interest and fascination and maybe even belief in the New Age spirituality. So they have some in a healthy way a split. They are able to live in both these worlds parallel. Yeah, it's hypothetical, but the group that I have been most interested in is the middle group number 2, and I will try to translate it from Swedish. These are the individuals that are normally sick, normally healthy, like most of us, but the involvement in the New Age spirituality allows them, or tempt them, they are tempted to not have to deal with the existential facts. So to this group, New Age becomes a escape way or a bypass. And within this, what was it called? This I write that while the first group denies or are not even in touch with the existential facts in a real way, number 3, they have accepted in a warm way, so to speak. But group number 3, those are the individuals who are continue struggling with the existential facts. So it's like denying, accepting, and wrestling the existential facts in the middle. I mean, that's the situation for the normal person. I mean, we go around and experience and think about these existential facts all the time. But when life when events in life are more rough and calls upon us to think about existential facts, we hopefully can bring those existential facts closer to our consciousness. I would say that group number two is the normal person, yeah. But New Age spirituality, those core beliefs and others, can tempt us not to have to struggle or struggle less. Yeah. So those are my results. So as you can see, you could stop at the sentence at the top of the page, like this is bad, this is harmful, this is crazy. From a Christian point of view, you maybe say it's crazy or it's untrue. From a harsh psychological view, you could say, I mean, this seems to be harmful, unhealthy. But to me, the rest of the page is important, really important. That you it's I have one of my favorite quotations. I don't have it here, but it's from Allport and Ross. And this quotation says that you hear about someone is religious in some way, but that say very little about what place religion has in the psychological, economical inner world for that person. So I think that's very, very important. And it makes it more it would be, it makes it more interesting as well. I mean, it's yeah, and it's I believe it's true. I'm sure it's true. I think I will stop in a while, and I will prepare material to go further from here. I will try to look into this question of the place or the absence of a relational God. In coming episodes, and I didn't know how this would work, but my Swedish, my school English that I learned in Sweden is, I think it's working, and it's actually it's like I believed it would be. It's sort of fit this subject, and I'm sure it will do further on as well, because it's to have to be more thoughtful and a little more slow in presenting these things and your thoughts and your questions when you have to do it on a not your native tongue. But I think I see if there was something more I would like to say before I end today. I think I'll stop here. I'm planning to be here in 1 week, next Sunday, 10 o'clock in Stockholm, and to continue this peeking into another realm at the border. And if you would like to follow this broadcast, it would be an honor. I'm sending this from Facebook Live, but I do some small editing in the beginning and the end of the clip, the episode, and then I put it out on YouTube in a day or two. And the name is Ediv Live. Maybe I will switch over to broadcast directly from YouTube later on, but now Facebook works fine for me. So, thanks for watching this. Either you have done it in real time or live or afterwards. And I wish you a nice Sunday. Bye.